The time is now 7:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this is episode 7 of Effluvium. We have a lot in store for you this evening. I have my regular panelist, Adam Forizati, and we will be joined by two guests, Dave, CALI'S, and the infamous Remington Britto. Actually, he's not infamous. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Yeah, he's quite harmless, but an absolute delight. And I'm so happy he's joining us. So we will be discussing modern versus vintage. So that is very open-ended. So we'll see what we'll explore in that discussion. And we'll also be covering notes in fragrance that we may have disliked in the past, but have come around to enjoy or even love. And we'll cover a lot of other bases as well, per usual. So I will be bringing them in shortly, but I will begin by doing my usual 3 first impressions. So the first impressions that I will be doing are Omnia, Opal. So I think the house is Omnia and the fragrance name is Opal. That will be one of them. And then the next one is Goldfield and Banks, Australia, Desert Rosewood. And then the third is Arquist's Nanban, which I have never really done a full assessment of. I've known about it, but I haven't actually worn it and given it a good test drive. So Nanban by Arquist. So let's get this started. Hello. Welcome. Yes. Cheers. I have something here. Actually, it is Trojanator by Treganator double bock beer. That is my beverage of choice. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think it's going to be a splendid lineup, a lot of spirited conversation, maybe a little bit of tomfoolery. Yeah, there's a little room for that. Oh, to beer. Hops Absolute, perhaps. Maybe a malt note and a fragrance. All right, let's get this started with the first impressions. We will begin with Omnia and the scent Opal. Okay. So this was recommended to me. And I recall that it is something that could possibly be marine or aquatic or salty. Let's see. That will be a foreshadowing to what we'll be discussing later. Ooh. This is kind of reminding me a little bit of Acqua di Sale from Profumum Roma. There is a distinct marine accord. There could be a few different things that are in the perfumer's palette that I can think of, like Azurol, Ultrazur, yeah, this is interesting. It is evocative of that sort of aquatic, watery, seaside, like a little saline, but also almost like this eggy kind of texture, like meringue, which I think is what often happens with some of these marine materials when they're dosed highly. I'm digging it so far. I think it might be redundant for me to wear this since I already have a pretty good quantity of Acqua di Sale from Profumum Roma. But I I approve of it. I like it. It's definitely a marine aquatic done well. I actually haven't tried Ignusa from Profumum Roma. I have a few fig fragrances that I already enjoy, so it wasn't really like a high priority for me to seek it out. Maybe at some point I'll grab a sample of it. Thank you for being supportive of the Tuesday streams. I enjoyed sharing these immensely with all of you, so I really appreciate that. Hi there, Mr. Clean. Yes, I look forward to it as well. This should be a wonderful evening. I thought maybe Calone or Kalone, but I'm thinking this is actually an even more intense, high impact aquatic material than even that, like Ultrazur or Azurone. I'm trying to think of some of the others. There's one that starts with the name like Maritime. I mean, I suppose what I could do is I could list off some of the examples of aquatic and marine materials. I have my perfume making spreadsheet that is organized by certain accords. And I can just read off to you all the different ones that can be used in an aquatic or a marine accord. That would also be an interesting discussion, the distinction between aquatic and marine. What makes something more aquatic than marine? Would marine be more sort of like the seaside smell, including the seaweed and the shells and the algae? And would aquatic be more just sort of like the fantasy type of watery or oceanic scent? So let's see. Goodness. Okay. Aquatic. I think it might be under marine aquatic. Just looking down here. Yes. Yes. Marine oceanic water. So these are the different things that I have listed that can be used. Alpha humulene, sentinol, maritima. That's what I was thinking of, a marine pyridine. Pyridines are very strong. Aquamate or marine formate, in parentheses, Mellifleur, Rutinol 100, Algix made by Cinerome, Floral Ozone, Azuril, Ultrazil, Ozonil, Fluorinil, Melanol, Calone. Then they have these naturals like oarweed, absolute. Oarweed is a type of seaweed. And then another type of seaweed, absolute. Don't know that particular species. Choyanak, which is roasted seashells, onycha, Siam wood, and Cabrueva wood. So there's a lot of different things that are suggested for making aquatic and marine accords. Howdy. Howdy. Does anybody remember Minnie Pearl, or am I dating myself? Remember her straw hat with her little price tag still in it? Hello, Scent of the Night, set by Le Gallion. I have never tried it. I've actually never tried anything from Le Gallion, truth be told. Uncharted territory. I would like to try Special for Gentlemen. That's one that I would like to really try. Well, then. Oh, well, if this is my party, I can be as rowdy as I want to. At your party, I will behave accordingly. Hi. Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for dropping by to this episode. And definitely not. No, I'm actually I concentrate and I'm really diligent at Scrabble, unless you're saying I would mess you up as far as word choice. It depends. I've had people kick my ass in Scrabble. I think it's more strategic rather than having a large vocabulary. So yeah, folks, share your sense of the day. I'm going to move on to the second first impression. This one is Goldfield and Banks, Australia, Desert Rosewood. We'll move over to this side. And it's a nice color. If I can try to, you can kind of see it in the light. Yeah, pretty honeyed, orangey kind of color. All right, so this house has been kind of hit or miss for me. I definitely sense a mainstream appeal that they're going for. I call it kind of like mainstream niche. Hey, I know, you know, houses need to make money, so I get it. You want to have some people who actually want to buy products, so all right. So this is desert rosewood. And so far, you know what this is actually kind of reminding me of? It's kind of reminding me of that Cartier, Pasha de Cartier Parfum, the Parfum version that they released, which is far removed from the original Pasha. It smells a bit boozy. I'm not really sensing rosewood per se. Cedarwood and sandalwood. Australian sandalwood, most likely. Yeah, Australian sandalwood, lost cedar, and like boozy aroma chems. And this would have modern appeal. And that's my take on it. Let's move on to Nanban by Arquiste. Dave, maybe you can send me in the direction of some Goldfield and Banks that you would recommend. The one that was really popular did not necessarily appeal to me. The name escapes me, but it was the one that was wildly popular. Everybody was chatting about it for a good year. All right, I'm going to put Nanban on here. Nanban. All righty. Yeah, I like so far. Yeah, this is very much reminding me of like sort of an 80s masculine, like Jill Sander, Man, like the original one, Man Pure, I think it was subtitled. Let me get that. Take that off of there. Oh, very nice. D&G masculine. Very nice. That's a good one. Yeah, this is very much reminding me of that. Sort of a more modern take on that. Like, it's kind of chewy and a little dank, herbaceous, woody, bit animalic. I'm into it so far, so we'll see how that changes over time. 33 people on. Thank you, everybody, for dropping by. Good evening. Welcome. Yes, Pacific Rock Moss. That's exactly the one that I had in mind. Special for gentlemen. It's a variation on the Habit Rouge theme, which is partly why it caught my attention. I think it drew comparisons to like also Jicky and Mouchoir de Monsieur. Hello, Dave. Thank you. Thank you for dropping by. All right. So we've done the 3 first impressions, and so far, I'll smell each of these again. Omnia, Opal. It's good. Goldfield and Banks. Decent. I hope my connection is not getting lost here. Hi. Sorry about that. It's decent. The Desert Rosewood. And the Nanban so far is grabbing my attention the most. So we'll see. That could take a turn. That's happened before. It's happened many times before, where the opening is far different of an impression than the heart in the dry down. Super important to remember. Great. Out and about with Jaipur EDP. Can't go wrong with that. Lovely stuff. I prefer the EDP myself. Hi, good evening. Thank you for popping in. Thank you so much. I understand it's probably really late where you are, Kareem, but thanks for stopping by and saying hello. Of course, we'll have this archived, so you can tune into it later. Yes, Dave, thank you. Please do hit the like button. Also, I would really appreciate the support if you could buy me a coffee, not a super chat, a little different. It is buy me a coffee. I'm going to type this in here. Pardon the little clickety clicks of my typing. Buy me a coffee. And I like mine with a splash of cream and some stevia. You know, got to watch the waistline. You know what I mean? All right, here we go. Thank you very much. I'm just seeing a little bit of the sideways chat here. Ooh. Okay. All right. Hey there. Made a lavender suede fragrance and it's really good. Okay. That will be on the to try list and will appear at some point soon. Here in First Impressions, lavender suede. Allow me to write that down if I actually have my pen available to me. I'm just going to have to get one from back here. Check this out. Looks like it's from the 60s. All right. Lavender suede. Making a note of it. And I can't get too much lavender for sure. One of my favorite notes. That might seem so pedestrian to people, like lavender. How could that be one of your favorite notes? Well, it is. I love it. I've loved it since as long as I could identify what lavender smelled like. So, and that's why I love a lot of fougères as well. So. Very nice. Been very let down by Carner Felino, also by Rue. Yes. Okay. Hi. Welcome. Okay. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to be bringing in my regular panelist and good pal, Adam Forizati. We'll get a little bit of chat going. And then shortly thereafter, we'll bring in our guests. So give a warm round of applause to Adam. Hey. So I can't hear you.
Hey,
now I can. Yes, I can hear you just fine. Good
How's
evening.
everybody doing?
Hi, Nikki. Thank you for dropping by. So what's happening?
Not much. It kind of feels a little strange to be in November right now. I'm not going to lie about that. But yeah, it was a wonderful Halloween. I hope everybody who did anything for it had a great time.
Yeah. I mostly have been avoiding eating too much candy that's been sitting around. Pumpkin flavored Kit Kats are quite interesting.
Okay. Have you tried the mint dark chocolate ones? Those are our downfall right now, honestly.
Yeah.
And if we keep them in the freezer, all the better.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to resist even the most highly processed of candies.
Well, to be honest
really
with you, I don't really want to know what like under processed candies would be like.
Usually kind of bland. But I like a good chocolate that's not processed. If it's a good quality chocolate, not much needs to be done to it for it to be good. So
that's a horse of a different color, my friend. I'm with you.
Yeah, but you know, some of the candies that are trying to evoke certain flavors that are hard to really flourish with only natural flavorings, I have a tough time with. Take, for example, one of my favorite candies, which happens to be Choward's Violets. I don't think there's much of a way to make naturally flavored violet. Maybe there is, and I'm just not aware of it. Maybe there's a natural isolate of alpha ionone. I don't know, but yeah.
Surely the science must be there for that.
Yeah, the science to make things natural. To make it so that you can put the natural label on the product.
You know, they say that science is where the money is, and that's probably really true. So if that's the logic, I can't imagine there's tons of reserve funds for a more natural isolate of alpha iro.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, now that I recall, GT's kombucha, they have this really good kombucha that they have in the springtime, and it's flavored with jasmine, elderflower, and violet. And I saw on the ingredients, I'm recalling it now, so that there was a natural violet flavor. I kid you not. Like I just remember that now. So I don't know. Maybe they have some sort of inside that they can make that happen. I don't know. It's GT's kombucha. It's pretty much one of the most popular mainstream highly produced kombuchas. So
What will Big Booch come up with next?
Hi there. Yes, this is Fernando. I don't know if he wants me to give his IG handle unless he gives me permission, but he does some wonderful content on Instagram. Chowers is vintage, and I love that. Violet is my favorite. I love the lemon ones. I pretty much will have any of the flavors. Spearmint. I prefer spearmint to peppermint. That's how like grandpa I am. Like spearmint.
I do not turn away any kind of mint, but I am with you in terms of spearmint having that kind of extra quality about it that is hard to describe, but makes it a little bit more like, oh, well, if we're going to deep dive into mints, then that's
I know
it's
an impromptu topic of discussion. Mint, love mint and fragrance. Actually, there's spearmint absolute, and they call it fresh mint absolute in the industry, but it's actually peppermint absolute, I think. And then, of course, there's all different kinds of materials that can be used in making a mint accord. Love mint in all its forms. Tasty, tasty.
And I love how aggressive of a plant mint is. It is a plant that just loves to exist, and it just spreads and spreads, and I love that.
Yeah.
It knows that it has the right to take over the world.
It will suffocate every other herb. It will just take its tendrils and wrap itself over everything else, and just it's really aggressive stuff. Hey, but you can always, scale. What do you call it? You scale it back, and you have plenty of mint to use. Plenty of mint to put in your water. I always like to put stuff in water when I drink it. I have a tough time with water as it is. So one of the things that I do, and I don't know if really too many other people do this, is I either put rose water or orange blossom water into my drinking water. I'll put like just a tiny bit. And it adds a certain something, like it just makes it more enjoyable to drink. I go into like a Mediterranean store in my neighborhood, and they know what I'm doing at this point. Like, oh, you need some more for your drinking water? It's kind of funny. But yeah, and then a little goes a long way. I mean, it's pretty potent stuff. You just need like a little tiny splash, and you can put it in a large bottle of water. So I love mint in a formulation, the way it gives lift through heavy materials, but in a natural, more natural smelling way. Yes, I agree. And mint in a fragrance doesn't necessarily always translate into mouthwash or toothpaste. Maybe there's that association, but I think that when you have mint in alongside other components, it becomes something more than that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are some examples of mint that you enjoy in fragrance, Adam? Are there a few that might come to mind?
Well, I think the one that we all know, or at least the one that many people will cite, is Mont Fraîche from Healy, and I really like that one. I think it's a good example of mint, a very capable example of mint. But to me, that one is more, or just equally as much about green tea as it is about mint. But you were talking about specific synergies that mint works really well with. Of course, it works really well with like a green tea kind of note. You know. I don't know if it exactly works as well as the Mont Fraîche example, but something that I've been working on, and I know other perfumers have done some work with, is the idea of combining those heavier base notes that the user there was talking about just a moment ago, that provides this incredible lift. So amber and mint is a really interesting combination. And I've made, to your point, Nikki, I've made an experiment that has like, big, rich, labdanum rich amber accords with mint on the top. And it's really fascinating what that combination does. It needs a little bit of balancing for sure, but it's really a fun combination. So I really like seeing it with just about anything. I'm just a general mint fan. I take all comers. But I would say notes that have something of a resinous or earthy kind of kick to them tend to combine particularly well with mint. I think one of the reasons why it works so well in Montfraiche with that green tea accord is because green tea has that kind of slightly earthy quality, and mint combines really well with that. Mint in like earthy accords, it's kind of like the spoonful of sugar a little bit, because earthiness can be kind of challenging to many people. So having something like mint that is like very enlivening and bright and sunshiny helps.
A little bit of leafy, invigorating, a pull in that direction kind of makes it seem a little bit less dank or even morbid, that you're, necessarily, digging in the dirt and getting dirt under your fingernails, that you actually have some herbs and stuff that take you above ground. And I noticed that a lot of herbs in the mint family seem to work well with amber accords. I think of an example with one of the most beloved amber fragrances, Ambre Sultan, has an oregano note in it. And I think that's like it's an very interesting contrast, how it kind of pulls it into something that's like a little bit more herbaceous and savory. And I see that with other herbs like basil and trying to think of some others like marjoram and thyme. They do some interesting things when there's a contrast between those and a sweeter vanillic or resinous dry down. So I think you bring up a really good point about that. But yeah, I love herbal notes anyhow. Some people, it's not really in their bag, but I just give me all of them. Rosemary, so many of them I really enjoy.
Well, they can be tough too, because I find that this is maybe more true of certain masculine standards in perfumery than it is for like the more niche or independently produced perfumes. That many herbaceous or herb heavy perfumes are maybe a little abstract for me. Like I wish some of them had a little bit more herbaceousness, but maybe that kind of goes against the mindset of the producers for these more successful, masculine fragrances. They might be too afraid to put too much, nature in their accords. I really like it when thyme smells like that. I mean, it's thymol, but there are specific qualities to thymol, the main aromacochemical component of thyme, that gives it that kind of woody backbone, if you will. And the same thing it can be true of other herbs like rosemary and things like that, where it has that kind of that dark woody quality to the back of it that kind of helps lift the rest of the accord and sort of cements the herbaceousness of it. And I really, I'm always on the hunt for like a really good, well rendered, like convincing herbal perfume. Otherwise, they can kind of lean a little soapy sometimes on those masculine standards, and that's not the herb accord's fault as much as it's like all like the clean musk underneath it in those cases.
Right. Well, it's testament to the fact that you have certain materials or certain accords in a fragrance that can easily collapse if you have some heavy hitters in the dry down. And also another thing, like I think that herbs are just so often paired with citruses as well. So they become like an aromatic accord rather than really showcasing the herbs themselves, which is wonderful. And I love that stuff. But what happens is that you miss some of the nuances of the herbs as they would be on their own as a result of that. So Lily here is making a recommendation, which is useful for both of us since we're not far. If you were in Cambridge or Somerville, go get some violet gelato at Le Macaron French Petit. Oh my God, that sounds
That sounds
divine.
wonderful. Yeah, we occasionally go into Somerville area for concerts. So that sounds like a worthy stop on a concert night.
Hell yeah. I've never been to Le Macaron, but I've heard great things about it. Lavender
Floral
kombucha.
notes
Ooh,
coming in clutch
love.
with those handy local recommendations. Lavender kombucha. Yeah, no, it sounds amazing.
GT's, speaking of, makes a lavender kombucha, and I am hooked on it. And Whole Foods, here I go, getting all bougie here. Whole Foods, since I'm just such a regular visitor, and I really am, which is kind of sad because I can't really afford it all the time. But they used to carry the lavender kombucha, and now they don't anymore. And now I have to find it at like Roach Brothers. I guess Roach Brothers carries it. I like Roach Brothers. Roach Brothers is a nice market as well, but it's not as accessible. So
I would be really curious if where was water and you're drinking water too. Yeah,
really,
no,
that's
I mean,
awesome.
hey, apparently that's the tip. I'm missing out. I will say, I'm kind of curious. I don't want to like hijack your stream, but I'm curious to know if everybody could name their local brand of supermarket, because that is a fascinating thing for me. Because we have, like, when you think about it, there's a huge swath of just buck wild names for supermarkets in the United States. It's really crazy. I'm sure there are people from outside the US on the stream too, but I'm kind of curious to know what your local supermarket name is. I'm sorry. These are the things that I think about sometimes.
Hey, throw it in the chat. I'm getting caught up with the chat, so we'll get to it. What's your local supermarket chain or chains? Just for the fun of it, folks. We have 34 people on. We might have hemorrhaged some people by going off on a tangent. Now we have 29. Oh, supermarket chains. This isn't even a fragrance discussion. I'm just joking. But yeah, drop your local fragrance chain. Supermarket chain.
Okay. How about this? List what the name is and what it smells like in there, because everyone has a different smell.
Yeah,
some of them are not so good.
No, Stop and Shop. If you add mint and ylang to Charles Jourdain un homme, you get Roger and Gallet l'homme. That's an interesting experiment. I should compare the two. Love Charles Jourdain. Wonderful stuff. And I love the l'homme for Roger and Gallet. Cool stuff. Good evening. Yes.
I do want to just point out that already we have a buck wild range of names that have come in.
Amazing. And I'm like way behind. I'm still at like 727, so I haven't even caught up.
The diversity, but
I'll get there, names, folks.
It's crazy.
Ooh, l'anarchiste. I love that one with the cinnamon. So can you see me just fine? Because I'm losing my own signal. Like, I don't see myself. But was I fine? Was there any interruption there?
No, you seem all right by me.
Okay. It was one of those things where I started to see the spin, and I wasn't sure if I was losing my own signal here. Hey, what's up? All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Just buy After 8. I was just admiring a box of After 8s today, and I was considering buying them. That's some like major like grandma has like, what an After 8? Like I saw it, and I think it was like CVS or something.
I don't think I've heard of After 8s.
They're like these thin chocolate mints. All right, we're getting there. Ooh, here are the names.
Yeah, like look at how different these all are.
Family Fare. Jewel. I think Jewel partnered with the Osco brand at one point. We used to have Osco, well, we still do, I think, but Spar. I know Spar. Coop. Remo 100.
It's a co-op.
Or Coop. Winco. Really? Barf? Barf.
That can't be true.
Like to get my groceries at the good old Barf. Oh, it smells like barf. I just So Winco smells like barf. Okay. Smith's, Harmon's, Whole Foods, Good Earth, and Sprouts. Hey, Empty Sense. Thanks for dropping by.
When you put all those names and take them all in together, you'd hardly know that we're talking about supermarket names anymore.
Well, out of context, somebody just jumping on could think that they're fragrance names. Like, Here's some of my favorites: Carrefour, Kaufland, Auchan, and Lidl.
Kaufland. I would like to know what Kaufland smells like. Not the actual supermarket. I can guess at what that might smell like. But I'm kind of
If it
curious
were
to
a
know
fragrance, what it would smell like.
Exactly.
Someone said our local Stop and Shop smelled like dead bodies. Pleasant. All right, we're all caught up here, so we'll move on from the one more. Rayleigh's. I like that. That sounds like a really friendly supermarket. Everybody's wearing like ties, or it's a very like tightly run ship, kind of like Market Basket. Rayleigh's. I don't know if it's anything like that at all. Scent of the night here is Bellamy Shaker Bottle. And we have one of our guests who are in tow, and it looks like they have a few things that are on display here. Wonderful. And Dave, if you are there, I'd like you to just get into the link, and we'll bring you in as well. We'll bring you in both at the same time. So Dave, we'll wait for you for just another moment or two. Findlay Market. That sounds like a trustworthy local operation. That's where you would get
your photo there. It looks like you founded Findlay Market. It's a classy sounding name for a classy looking individual.
Yes, he's a man of the woods, and when he needs to get his trail mix and his beef jerky, he'll stop at the Findlay Market. Texas has HEB Howard Edward Butts. Sounds
almost
like some
as
delicious
bad as Roche
stuff.
Brothers.
Yes, sounds like you can get some delicious stuff at the meat counter. You Americans in your fancy supermarkets. Oh no, trust us. Some of them are not fancy. They may seem fancy. And Shaw's is up there too. Trader smells like success. And cookie butter. Yes. There's a supermarket here called Remington's. They only sell real oak moss. Sort of an inside joke, Adam, but Remington is a fan of the genuine Vernia prunastri.
Well, he looks like he could probably grow a few trees.
He could grow it in his woods. Yes. Yeah. He could wild forage it and distill it himself.
There you go. There you go. Go right to the source.
All right. So we'll hopefully Dave will be ready and available to join us. I don't want Remington to wait any. Oh, here he comes. We're gonna bring both of them in first. In order of who is backstage, we're gonna bring in Remington. Hello. And he is in the midst of something very important right now. He is photo documenting his microphone.
I'm actually studying on my next oak moss experiment. I'm going to be growing it in my basement, trying to find out the exact correct UV lighting that I'll be needing. It's not the type of lighting you need for those other plants people grow in their basement. This is different.
It's very different. Very specific light is needed.
Yes, very specific in order to get the Evernia prunastri. Correct. Yes, exactly. You nailed this, JJ. It's illegal. Look, and it's tough to get. You've got to go backdoor. I've got to get on the black internet sites, like the deep black market, to find all of my oak moss stuff. IFFRA has made it very fucking difficult.
It's because of the water bears. That's the reason why they're banning them. Do you know water bears have tardigrades? They live on lichen. It's those pesky water bears. They're the ones that are causing the skin irritation. All right. Next, we're gonna bring in.
Imagine every sheeper you spray, you're killing millions of tardigrades.
They're probably still alive. They're just true. Like they're like dormant, but they're like suspending the alcohol, waiting for their chance to be reanimated again. We're gonna bring in Dave Cali's groom room next. Hey, what a mighty nice display you have behind you there. Love the mood lighting.
My head's cut off.
Yeah, some mood lighting action going on. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes. Yes, Tommy, I can hear you. I can see you.
All right.
Okay, it's a bad reference. Okay, so we have everybody together here. Hemoglobin scent. Yes,
That's
nothing
interesting.
like the scent of congealed blood. Okay,
Secretions
so
magnifique.
it's more legendary than anything else. If you actually smell it, it's kind of off-putting. And so, say if I were to do a first impressions, I've already done it long ago. If I were to have done a first impressions of Secretion Magnifique here, I would be really appalled by it. But then as it dries down, it's actually a kind of a pleasant, slightly metallic floral that's wearable. So the worst part of it is like maybe the first 15 minutes. There's also a lot of other fragrances out there that the worst part is the first 15 minutes, but then you just wait it out until you get to the good part. So Dave, you had 2 excellent suggestions for conversation.
I did.
One
What
you
were they?
mentioned. I could have sworn they were yours. I think they, unless they're Adam's, I don't think they were Remington's because I just invited him recently. You had suggested a comparison of modern and vintage. So a modern and vintage. It was open-ended, which I liked. I liked that it wasn't particularly specific because it leads to a lot of options in a discussion. And then also you had suggested notes that at one point you disliked that you had since come around to really enjoy and appreciate.
Yes. First, hello, Adam. Hello, Remington. I don't believe I've ever spoken to or met you officially.
CALI'S Groom Room. It's very nice to meet you. I was going to say, yeah, same thing, man. I've seen you around FragCom, but I have not officially met you, man. Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you.
And maybe I could take some grooming tips from the both of you. You are very well coiffed, if you will. It's amazing.
I think JJ has the best grooming tips if you ever need them.
Well, I don't have the full head of hair, so I'm absolutely useless in that department, and that leaves me with very little trouble as well. So I don't miss that. But I am very envious of the wonderful coiffed hair. You have great hair, Dave.
Oh, stop it.
Normalize hair compliment. I love it.
I think he's got me beat. I think CALI'S Groom Room might have better hair than me. I'm going to be honest here.
I don't know, man. That's a pretty killer fade you got going on there. The best tip, honestly, because I know someone asked me too on Mr. Smelly stream. I think it was last week or the week before. Honestly, the best tip to your best hair is the barber or stylist, whatever you fancy. Yep. That is the key. Yep. That is the number one best thing before any kind of hair product, shampoo, conditioner that you could use. That is the key. That's the best part right there.
Yeah, 100% correct. It's well worth to pay the extra money. I think a lot of guys say, well, I got to get like a cheap haircut. I'm going to go to like a Supercuts, or maybe you might go a step above. But I think that's a huge mistake. You should find a barber, and a good barber, it's going to cost you. And look, I'm in Cincinnati, so the prices are really cheap here. I know in New York and all sorts of places, way more expensive, but I pay $50 for a haircut with tip. And it's well worth every single penny because nobody else is going to, they don't know my hair. They don't know where my calic is at. They don't know how to cut it. Once you have a barber and he's good, then he knows your hair, and then he does it perfect every single time. And you know that when you go to the barber, you're going to be looking A+ no matter what. There's no anxiety like, oh, hope they don't screw it up.
JJ, am I allowed to swear?
You can, as long as it's not like every other word. That's fine. I'm not monetized yet, so if you say tip the occasional
fucking barber
shit,
there.
What's that?
Tip your fucking barber.
There you go. See, for my emphasis.
Yeah, my cut's 35. I give him $15. I think that's pretty decent.
Rudy's got
Fernando. Thank you for dropping.
Oh, by. Rudy's got some of the best hair in FragCom. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say Rudy's fade might be better than mine. Yeah, his is ridiculous.
Oh my God! Please don't. He's already got a big head. Please don't do this, especially live. Christ.
Rudy is sexy, man. He's losing all this weight. He's a sexy ass dude. There's no doubt about that.
Moving right along, let's talk about modern versus vintage. What is the first thing that comes to mind when that is in isolation? Modern versus vintage. What is the first thing that comes to mind? Start with you, Dave.
hate is the first word that comes to mind, because it feels like, I don't know, whenever this topic comes up, or you hear different YouTube personalities talking about, it seems like the first word that comes up is suck. Vintage fragrances suck, or modern releases suck. Now, what I will say is I was talking to somebody the other day. I've sampled pretty much every mainstream release that's come out so far from the designer side. And I'm talking mainstream. So anything that you could find your Sephora, your Macy's, your Ultas of the world. And aside from maybe 2 fragrances, there's nothing that really strikes me that's full bottle worthy, I should say. But to categorize the entire, kind of what the makeup of modern releases, to say they all suck is a bit of a stretch, because I strongly disagree with that. I don't think they're all that bad.
Remington, your thoughts. You hear modern versus vintage. What comes to mind?
What comes to mind? Oh gosh. What really first comes to my mind, because it's me, oak moss versus woody amber. It's kind of one of the first things that comes to my mind. Vintage versus modern. Geez, gosh, my journey, everybody's journey is different. My journey began with vintage. I love vintage. I wear more vintage than modern. I can't wear vintage all the time. I do need a little bit of modern every once in a while. I reach for some woody ambers. I brought some of the modern stuff I have, but coming from somebody who is, kind of in love with the older stuff, and loves the oak moss and is kind of obsessed with like the dry downs and all of those fragrances. It's, it's tough, because I almost feel like, it's comparing, the old school 60s, 70s muscle cars to like a car of today. And it's just, where do I even begin? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of hard for me to even, because there's just so much that's different. It's a complete opposite ends of the spectrum now. I mean, and maybe you might disagree, but that's kind of what I've, and I need to get a lot more niche, and there's a lot of stuff I need to get my nose on, but I've smelled a lot of modern stuff, and it just always comes back to like how Rudy says and how Scott says and Eugene, that woody amber. And I just, for the most part, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Adam, modern versus vintage.
I'm really glad that we're on this topic. It just recently came up in a recent Fragrantica Talks episode. We briefly mentioned the idea that both Nicola Thomas and I kind of, we struggle with many vintages, because we both kind of came to perfume from slightly more modern things, if not incredibly more modern things than anything you'd classify as a vintage fragrance. I was just sort of given a random bottle or a random bag of samples from, I believe, Tom Ford's private collection and Imaginary Authors, if I'm remembering correctly. And so, it doesn't get more emblematic of modernity, I think, than those samples. Those are very, very much houses that might learn a lot from the past, but are striking in their modernity. So I would say that it's difficult, because every time I go and try to smell a vintage bottle of something, and I'm talking about a bottle that is at least 10, 15, 20 years old or older, every time I try to put my nose to one of those bottles, I struggle a little bit, because it's never what I think it's going to be. I think I came to the community via these modern scents, if you will, and I kept on hearing people sort of go on and on about how much they loved vintage fragrances. And I thought to myself, well, clearly, if I'm going to get involved in this community, I better learn what these are, and I better get my nose to them, and I better, study them. And I did to some extent. I could do with more. But every time I put my nose to a bottle of something, I keep on getting this feeling like, oh, these all smell a little bit similar. Why is that? And I think there is sort of an element to this where when you put your nose to an actual vintage bottle, an old bottle of something, you are not smelling the version of it as it came out. When something ages, even if it's stored perfectly, this is something we don't often talk about, but even when you store something perfectly, there are small, slow chemical reactions going on in that bottle. I mean, just from a chemical scientific perspective, it's always going to be a little bit different smell-wise than it was when it first came out. And if you're talking about a particularly old bottle of something, it's difficult because most people who really like vintages, who were around when one of them was first released or a different version of one was released, they talk about it from a somewhat romantic, looking back on the past kind of idea and mindset. And that's great. But I don't have that mindset. And so when I put my nose to really, really old bottles, I sometimes wonder, was this thing stored correctly? There are just so many distractions about it that keep me from really appreciating it. So I think I need to do my due diligence and hop more into the world of well cared for, well stored vintage bottles.
They're definitely out there, but it's a challenge because so many of them, unfortunately, are subject to degradation over time, especially certain families of scents more so than others. When you have more front-loaded, top-heavy citrus aromatics, it's very difficult to find one that is intact because those lighter molecules degrade much more fast. Heavier molecular weight promises endurance. So that's why in vintage enthusiasts, what are those heavier molecules? Remington, what's a really heavy one? There's a few that are in a certain, they're heavier materials, we'll say, rather. I don't expect you to know the organic chemistry, but oak moss. Oak moss is, it ages very well. Oak moss ages very well. Sandalwood, patchouli, labdanum.
Everything in the base. Everything in the base holds up, but the opening doesn't hold up. I mean, do you disagree, JJ?
Yep. Don't disagree at all. It's chemistry. Because the lighter molecular weight of citruses and herbal notes and aldehydes, they anything that's more diffusive is going to be lighter in molecular weight. So that's what you find in so many of the vintages, that those are the ones that are burned or off or turned. And that can often put off certain people because that's your introduction to certain vintages. However, I do think that some people who enjoy vintages a great deal, this is a theory of mine, they actually either like the absence of that, or they enjoy whatever sort of chemical reaction occurs and that resulting scent. Like, I actually believe this, and to them, this is the little mind fuck that comes from this. They think it's better, often because of that, and not necessarily because of what it had originally smelled like. Like, I'm fairly certain there are a lot of fragrances that have been there's been a very little of an impact, even with changes in regulations, limitations on the types of materials, that they notice that difference only because the older bottle smells better to them subjectively. I don't think that's always the case, but I think I think that's just one of my theories why some people are like vintage or bust. Like, it's got to be vintage. But what's sad about it is that, don't you want a fresh bergamot? Don't you want to experience a fresh lemon?
Yeah,
or
no, you're right.
Those aldehydes that are, and those,
especially in warmer weather. Yeah, no, 100%. Absolutely. Whereas, like, I don't wear as much vintage in spring and summer. I wear much more vintage in the fall and in the winter, because those are the fragrances that have held up. And that's in this whole conversation gets a little goofy for me as well, because, to be frank with you, I've never smelled a fragrance that had turned. I've never smelled a fragrance that was like I smelled them. Oh, this is, whoa, well, holy shit. And you've read about those things and what it smells like, you would know it right away. But at the same time too, the only vintage fragrances I've ever bought have been brand new in the box. They were in the box for 20
Which is
years,
smart.
25 years. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, well, I know. And I look, and I ran into a situation. I found a honey pot, and this place was getting ready to shut down, and they had all these fragrances in the back. They thought they were expired, and it was all this beautiful vintage stuff. And it's everything. I mean, it's vintage Montana and vintage Crizio Uomo and vintage Zurias and you know, it could go Tobacco Extreme from the late 80s, vintage Derrick, you know, all of these scents that they had, and they were all perfectly, like, they had just been sitting in a box for 20 something fucking years. And in the opening, in some of them, I can tell maybe, okay, yeah, it's not near as bright as it should be, or whatever that may be. But I'm not in it for the opening. I'm not in it for the first, like, whatever. I can get through something for 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes when I'm so in love with the rest of the fragrances that it's going to last me 6-7 hours. And so, you know, when I crave those green, velvety, deep, like those, the hummingness, like there's not, like, other fragrances don't hum. Like my vintage fragrances, when they get to the base, they fucking hum. They like vibrate. I don't even know how to explain it. And my wife doesn't want to be around me in the opening of any vintage fragrance. She's like, get the hell away from me. But as soon as it dries down, she thinks I smell like a snack. How is that? And then it's the opposite. It's like, I absolutely love Bulgari Man in Black, the opening. The opening is, I fucking love it. And then it dries down to this like woody amber, just bleh, right? It's like this fucking, just something about it. It's like giving me anxiety or something. And I find it in a lot of the modern woody ambers. And I know that a lot of niches out there, they're going to use high quality, you know, and I haven't really gotten into that yet because they're so gosh damn expensive. And I was able to buy. Go ahead.
No, I cut you off. Sorry about that.
No,
Dave, go ahead.
I'm the nicest asshole you'll ever meet.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. You have to be careful with that too when you're diving in, because so what I've been doing besides not putting out content is I've been doing a lot more sampling this year than blind buying. Although I don't condone blind buying, I definitely partake. Almost my entire collection has been blind bought, almost. And what I've found is that I'm not going to mention any specific fragrance, nor am I going to mention any specific brand. I just don't want to do that. But you could, when you can definitely, when people say you can't smell quality, I completely disagree. You definitely can. And I've got to say there are, even when you get into niche, the biggest misconception is that all niche brands must have high quality. Not true at all.
No, absolutely not. Yep.
I agree. Yep.
What you have to keep in mind is there are mainstream designers, there are exclusive designer fragrances, there are niche brands, and then there are also mainstream niche brands. So mainstream niche brands, kind of like your mainstream designers, are going to cater to their mass audience, which is admittedly probably less than your, mainstream designers, but it's still being produced. The fragrances are still being produced in a mass amount of quantity. So sometimes you can experience lesser quality than what you were hoping for, and sometimes you get a fragrance priced significantly less than a different niche fragrance, and you're like, why does this smell so much more like what the notes suggest it should smell like than a fragrance I spent twice as much money on? Mainly it's because, from my experience, and JJ, you're more versed on this topic, but in my experience, when we're just talking about price point, it seems like to me that a brand prices something to cater to a certain echelon, a more exclusive consumer, if you will. So if we're talking $600, $700, $800, $900, $1,000, they know that they're not going to sell 5,000 bottles in a month. they're probably going to sell maybe, what would you say? Maybe 50, 100 bottles in the course of a year, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's all sorts of different things to take into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I've really been digging the smaller indie niche brands when it comes to perfumery. I find the perfumes from indie niche to be so much more interesting. Although JJ kind of crapped on a brand that I freaking love earlier in the stream.
It was like Goldfield and Banks?
I
Which one?
love Desert Rosewood. I freaking love
It's
that
just
perfume.
not, yeah. So far, it's like it's not bad. It's just it leaves something to be desired for my palate. That's all. That's all.
Did you
I'm
have?
not crapping
I
on it.
I was listening. I was sort of watching. Did you have a dabber?
Well, I do have a dabber, but it is my belief that I can get an idea of a fragrance even through dabbing it. What I do with the dabber is I just try to use the pointillist approach and try to just diffuse it as much as possible on my skin.
Okay.
But I did actually, consider, that's another whole topic that would be interesting to explore, because I've heard people say that there are differences in the way that a fragrance can be experienced, as far as how it is diffused on the skin. Adam, what do you think of that? Do you think that it is advantageous when doing a first impression of a fragrance with an atomizer versus a dabber, or do you think that there's really a difference? Or
I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. If you have a system, I think if you have a system of reviewing a perfume for your own standard or for somebody else, stick to that. But for me, frankly, I just do whatever. If I have a strip nearby, I'll use a strip first. If I have an open patch of wrist, then I'll use that. I do have some tight standards in terms of like where I spray when I do spray on myself. That isn't just like a quick wrist sample kind of thing. But that's a whole other thing.
Adam, could I put you on the spot a tad?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So you're a Fragrantica reviewer, am I right?
Among other things, but yeah, that's my main claim to fame here, I guess.
Okay, as I said, I'm watching the chat. Adam and Remington and myself just met for the first time. That's why I was asking. Would you review from a decant?
Yeah. Well, are you asking about are you asking about the not knowing where the source is, or like what is your primary concern
Sample
there?
gate.
No. You bought a legit. You bought a legit. Let's go with the discovery kit. You bought a legit discovery kit. It comes in a 2 milliliter sample. You sprayed it on your skin over the course of, let's say, I don't know, 3 days. You have a good enough idea, a good enough picture is painted in your head to where you feel like you can let the world know. Do you review that fragrance for the masses?
The key was 2 mil.
I mean, I generally try to wear it a few times. You know what I mean? I don't, it's not like I'm doing it over the course of just 3 days. I might spend a week. I might spend more than a week with it. It depends, but generally speaking, yeah. I mean, what you also have to keep in mind, though, is that I also review a lot of indie and niche perfumes. And so I'm usually buying samples from the house itself. So
how much do you get, though? Like, how big are the samples? 2 mil, 5 mil, 10 mil? What are they?
It depends on each house, actually. Some companies do like larger sample sizes than others, but generally in that range that you said, about 2 mil, maybe 5 mil at the max.
Okay.
Sometimes, like on a rare occasion, I have to get something that's like 10 mil or something, but most samples tend to be within that 2 to 5 range.
Is it enough to wear the fragrance 3 times, like 3 full true wearings?
It depends on the type of fragrance.
Good point. Yeah. Okay.
Now, if we're talking a very light kind of, something that's built to be wispy, maybe perhaps a lower concentration, doesn't always mean a lower concentration, but something that just behaves in a lighter, wispier fashion, I generally try to apply more at a time. But I also another thing that I do too is that the first time I wear anything, I usually wear it with 1, maybe 2 sprays max. Usually it's just, I try to limit myself to 1 spray, or if I really have to use a dabber, then I'll kind of fudge it to the extent to which I can decide how much a spray would be. But yeah, I have like standards in terms of like how much I apply on, but I don't have like a set answer to give you in terms of where I'm getting it, because or how much of it I'm getting at a time, because these things change per case.
The reason why I asked you is just because I've seen a lot of debate, seems to be on every social media platform, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case is, that people should not be reviewing fragrance from a sample. I think that's complete bullshit. Complete bullshit. You can totally. That's why I asked you if you had a dabber, if you didn't have spray, because I think that's bullshit too. Because I bought fragrances off of Lucky Scent's website from a dabber sample they sent me. Now I'm just not personally. I just don't like them as a preference, but that's just me. That's a personal preference thing. But
same
to discourage people from reviewing just because they have a sample is, I find it disrespectful to the person that does it, and I just find it kind of petty and stupid. Honestly.
This is why some people believe that the Earth is flat. They think they know better.
Who, pray tell, are the blockheads who are claiming that you can't do a proper review when you have 3 milliliters of a fragrance? Because 1 milliliter of a fragrance gives you a good 6 to 7 sprays, and you don't necessarily need to spray 6 or 7 times to kind of get like an initial assessment, and you still have 2 more milliliters left. Like I do recall that there are some people who say that you actually need like a bottle. Like you actually need to. No, absolutely not.
Crazy. No, that's crazy. No, but
that's
I just feel like at least 3 wearings though, right? Because I don't know. There's so many different things. Your food could change, because if you coming out of your pores, you had Indian food the night before, and then you spray the fragrance, and you're like, I don't think I like this. And you wear it 2 days later and you spray it and you're like, oh, this is better. I just feel like you need at least 3 wearings. That's kind of like my personal opinion, whatever mil that equals out to. But I don't think you can do it off of 1 or 2 mil. I feel like you need at least 5 mil, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
We could test that. There's a way that we could test that. I know that but we can share results at a later date. But yeah, I don't think that it needs to be like 50 milliliters worth. You don't need a full bottle and have a relationship with it and have a journal of your wearings over the months to give a proper assessment of something. And this is what I have to say about reviewing too is that there's no written code on exactly how one should be reviewing a fragrance. You can review and then you can go back on your review and edit it and update it and say, I've had a change of heart over the years. So there's no time. I think for anybody to make a proclamation that you absolutely need to wear it 20 times, you need to have a love affair with this fragrance. You have to see if it works out. You don't need that. But I do agree with you, Remington, that you need like at least 3 wears. Maybe try it, put it away, try it again a couple weeks, maybe, and then go back to it. Like these first impressions that I do on these Tuesdays, like it's only first impressions. I say it so many times because first impressions are so partial based on what do I have here? 2 hours. So I think first impressions are fun, but they're incomplete. I think they're just a fun exercise. I think that first impressions are really really poorly executed when you don't revisit it after like an hour or 2 hours at least, because you're just basing it on when it first hits the skin. Like, for example, the first series of first impressions that I did on Tuesdays, it was for Ganymede. And at first I was like, not so sure about this. And then 2 hours later, I was like, I can get into this. I can vibe with this. Yeah. So, and that's just 2 hours in. And, you know, I had a couple other wearings, and now, even though I'm not going to spring for a full bottle, I respect it a lot more, and I kind of appreciate it. So, but I think it's absurd when somebody says that you can't do that on a smaller quantity. It's to suggest that you need to spend the money to buy the bottle and show it off and have your Instagram photo and all of that. That's a slippery slope.
Well, and I don't know if it's as much. Well, there is a fair amount of snobbery. I saw that in the comments, but I honestly think that it has a lot to do with discouraging somebody from reviewing, which is exactly why I'm going to review from samples, to encourage instead of tear people down all the time. That's what it is. That's definitely what it is. Oh, you can't review that from a sample. Why not? If you don't blind buy things and you sample first, didn't you buy that fragrance based off of a sample you tried? So what the hell is the difference? You know?
Do you think, I mentioned this last week, we were talking about samples actually last week, and I said, do you think that Luca Turin has thousands of bottles of fragrance and reviewed from all those thousands of bottles? No. Do you think that people who review movies watch the movie, you know, 10 times before they can do a review? Like, it's bullshit. I don't know. I don't understand why that's even like, why anyone's even saying that. Like, are they basically saying, like, you need to shell out the dough or have somebody offer you a bottle in order for you to be a legit reviewer, which is, most reviewers are not doing the whole content creation thing. A lot of people are writers. Like, first and foremost, like, I'm a writer. I came into Instagram as a writer, and then I ended up on YouTube after Instagram. But first and foremost, I'm a writer. So when you're writing a review, your intentions may be a little bit different. And I think a lot of these people, they come in as like influencers and content creators. So they put that ahead of having, you know, really just sort of like an analytical, critical review. There's other parts in motion. So there's like a different kind of agenda. And I'm not saying it's a good or a bad agenda, it's just different. So I imagine these people probably are part of that, and that's the way that they look at it. I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Well, first, that's what drew me to your Instagram page in the first place, is your writing. I'm the opposite. I'm a better, well, maybe people won't agree with me, but I mean, it's just the way I am. I convey a better message speaking than I do typing. Most of when I used to do written reviews on Instagram, which kind of pain in the ass for me, I used to speak, like do the voice record notes, excuse me. And then I would transfer those into writing. I can speak better than I can try to transfer the thoughts in my brain to my fingers. Maybe it's just too much multitasking for me. I don't know.
No, I mean, everybody has their preferred method of expressing their ideas, and no one is superior to the other. Like, I actually feel like I'm more at home when I'm writing, and I have to kind of like fake it until I make it to have words come out of my mouth to articulate what I want to articulate. So I don't know if it was Adam or Remington that was about to say something. I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
Ooh, my fault.
Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
I think the industry kind of, when I say the industry, I mean, I should say the community, puts a lot of expectations on reviewers, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, I understand that we want to expect a lot from the people who are telling us about fragrances, or who we're trusting to tell us something about a fragrance. But at the end of the day, I think the reason why we're putting so much trust into people, and the reason why we are demanding, you know, oh, they should let you know if they've received a free sample. Oh, they don't have to do that. Oh, they should wear it a minimum of 26 times before they review it all. They only need to wear it twice. Like, it's so much back and forth. I think the reason, or one of the reasons why we expect as a community so much of reviewers is because of the platform. The fact that so many people have a platform now that you can start an account on YouTube or Instagram or wherever for little to no cost and just start writing. And if you know how to use hashtags, or even if you don't and you just write really well, you can gain a platform. And so the result is that you have a lot of expectations, and everybody has unique ones. So, you're going to hear a lot of opinions about how people should do what they do. But to me, at the end of the day, if you don't like the way somebody writes or talks or, makes content regarding fragrance, you don't have to watch them. You have so many other options. All I can hope for is that people who read what I write enjoy it. And if they don't, I'll try to improve, and I'll try to take any constructive criticism they have to heart. But at the end of the day, it's just unrealistic to think that anybody with a given opinion about how reviewers should review, that there might be something to learn from that. There just sometimes is, and there sometimes isn't. It depends on who you are as a reviewer and what you choose to do with the platform you have.
Some cogent points there. What we could do, guys, is we could steer it back into the modern versus vintage, how that ties into that reviewing of modern versus vintage, or we could just stay on the topic specifically of reviewing. What I was going to say, though, is that both modern and vintage, I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on that subject, is like both modern and vintage are not monolithic. It's like vintage spans like centuries pretty much. It's like you have everything from like the earliest days of perfumery, and it can go back as far as the 1700s, arguably, at least the 1800s, when perfume houses were really starting to materialize. And you go through that whole history into, some people at this point, it's kind of scary, but they think that the early 2000s is vintage. So it is, there's so much that had changed in perfumery over those 150 or so years. And likewise with modern, I think that I would recommend not being myopic when it comes to modern. And I say that as somebody who, much like Remington, like, I love my vintages. But the thing with moderns is that you have to kind of pay attention to different areas of the marketplace to get what is fulfilling for you as a perfume. You're not going to get, first of all, you're not going to get it in mainstream designer fragrance. No way, no how, because they know their market now and their market's needs, and for them to make money, they're not going to give you anything near what was delivered 30, 40, 50 plus years ago. Be that as it may, there's plenty of modern stuff that draws heavily from history and has a lot of reverence and respect for classical perfumery. They might do a modern twist on it, and which is interesting. And I love a lot of that stuff where it's like, they praise the foundations of perfume, but they have built upon it with innovation. And then still others are just completely classical. They may make it a little bit modern so they can actually make some money, but it's impressive stuff. I mean, there's some houses like Les Indémodables and Eris Parfums and, Parfums d'Empire, that you see a lot of that classical style, and those perfumers were trained in that classical style. The what do you call it? The Jean Carl, that kind of school, and so forth. But you're not going to see it in the designer realm unless you consider designer niche. And that's what I call like exclusive lines that have like a niche market. They know that their consumer is paying a premium to have some sort of fragrance that expresses itself within that that historic context, like, Chanel's Les Exclusives, for example, or maybe Hermes or something like that, Dior to an extent. So just something to think about. I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I agree, but I also think too that just like style, I think, well, at least I hope that designer brands do listen to what's being talked about in the various branches of the fragrance community, and they do bring things back. Now, when I say bring things back, obviously they're not going to be reinventing any wheels or anything like that, but maybe they will give us, maybe some modern day sheep fragrances, or maybe, fougères in a more modern way, but having a bit of a classic influence to them. I'm cool with that. That would be kind of nice to see, but
isn't that impossible? I
no.
just don't. I mean, isn't the fougère, isn't a modern fougère, is that possible? Is that I mean, yeah, maybe it is by using some really, really high quality, but you're still going to be missing oak moss. And don't you have to have oak moss in a fougère? Am I wrong on that, JJ?
Good question. Well, here's the thing. So there is,
coming from somebody who loves fougères. I mean, I absolutely love barbershop fougères. I mean, and I know you do as well, JJ. So I think there's part of us that do love that group, that niche group, those barbershop fougères. There's a part of us that we're trying to hold on as best as possible, and that's why that's why we do covet a lot of our vintages so much, because we know it'll never come back. And when we spray ourselves, it's gone, it's forever. We're literally just spraying history on ourselves, and it'll never come back. It's not possible to come back because of what IFFRA has done. Am I wrong on that?
I would challenge that. But let's go, JJ.
So yeah, I would challenge it as well, and this is the reason for why. Budget. Okay, so budget allows whoever's releasing the fragrance, the perfumers, every individual and component that's involved in releasing that fragrance, to create one that has an oak moss accord that doesn't require the same percentage of oak moss, because it is possible to rebuild an oak moss accord without having a lot of oak moss. And the reason for that is that we have a lot of different things. Now, it's not just Evernil, because Evernil is cheap, and a lot of cheap dry downs on cheap fragrances with no budget, or a brand that nobody cares about anymore. They're not pumping any more money into it. They have just this very flat, vapid Evernil dry down. However, you have the Evernil and Orsinol, the small amount of Avernia prunastri with the atronol removed. The atronol, there are arguments like, oh, the atronol is what makes oak moss smell like oak moss, but it's not much of a difference at all. Trust me, because I've smelled the difference. I've smelled it over and over and over again. Diluted 10%, 1%, 2%. Not much of a difference at all. So you have that. You also have tree moss. You also have patchouli and vetiver, which can build upon an oak moss accord, but that involves money.
Yep.
And putting together that oak moss accord without using the same amount of oak moss as had been used previously, you can still have a great oak moss base, but it's not as common because of budgets. So with a lot of fragrances that maybe had their heyday 30 to 40 or more years ago, they don't sell that well. There's no money in being invested in it. They're being sold to, Coty or whatever else, Puig, one of those, big corp. It's sort of,
yeah.
It's not.
There's no money in it, JJ. You're exactly.
There's no money in that for those particular fragrances.
And what guy in their 20s, early 30s wants to smell like a barbershop fougère, unless you're sense of South Jersey. It's just
Personally,
go ahead.
No, I did it again. See, I told you.
No, I don't mind you doing it at all. Go right ahead. No, go ahead.
I think Chanel's Platinum Egoiste would smell phenomenal on a gentleman in their early 20s, maybe, out of college, getting their first, job with their degree or something like that. They're going to be more in a business professional type of setting. I think they would smell fantastic with that fragrance. Yeah, honestly, I think that's the prime age. Somebody in the early to mid 20s can definitely rock that with confidence, and that's very much a barbershop fougere.
We may very well see a renaissance of that, and that would be a great tangent to get into in a little bit as we talk about notes that we've come around to, because we have a little bit of time for that. I will take, for example, one of my favorite fragrances of all time, which is Chypre Mousse from Olitza à la Grande. Chypre Mousse was re-released at a time already past IFRA's restrictions to oak moss. And if there is a fragrance that smells like such an amazing oak moss dry down within those limitations, it is that one. It is possible, and they're out there. Granted, they're not out there with the same frequency because of the nature of oak moss and modern tastes, a lot of different things. I mean, in a lot of ways, oak moss, the scene is not even that important by commercial perfumery anymore because it's being used less and less in mainstream perfumery. But I guarantee you, if you're exploring certain left field houses, niche houses that have the budget, have the dedication, they can put together a great oak moss accord without using all that oak moss. I'm not, but it's sad. It's still sad that we can't use as much oak moss, and I still don't necessarily think that we should have restricted it to that level, but it's something that's kind of out of our control. It's the European Union. IFRA has enforced that. That's a whole other can of beans, but we can do it. It's just a matter of what is going on in the background here.
I was wondering that too.
It's not me.
What on earth was that? Okay. But it is possible. It's just that was like the Phantom. That was like the the ghost of oak moss past, I think.
It's the ghost of disinformation past.
Watching
the
this
ghost
right
of
now,
disinformation past as well. So, Adam, I wanted you to piggyback on that because I think you had some words to say about it as well, and then we'll move on to the next subject.
I love this. Is the juiciest topic. I love this topic. Okay, so a few things. Where to begin? I would push back or maybe stress the importance of language when we talk about this. So a few things have been said, right? That I wanted to just poke at really quick, poke the bear. So when we say that, oak moss is never coming back, we have to be careful when we say that because that's not necessarily true. I don't want to go too far into like IFRA just because it's such a hot topic and it gets heated really quickly and all that. All I'm going to say about it is just that IFRA doesn't do half the things that people blame them for. IFRA doesn't kill things. IFRA doesn't take things away. IFRA literally does not take anything away from you.
No, IFRA does nothing. You're exactly right. It's the RIFM. It's the 12-person panel, which most of them are like veterinarians, and there's like one dermatologist on the entire board. The conflict of interest page that's on the RIFM has been taken down because it was just so blatantly obvious as to what happened. The only reason that they banned IFRA or they banned oak moss at all, and they created IFRA as a buffer. So everybody loves to point the finger at IFRA and they're like, well, IFRA did that. And if IFRA does nothing, all they do is take the suggestions from the 12-person panel. What's in the background again? What the fuck?
Well,
for a carnival?
There are also actual like skin scientists who do some of that research too. It's not just but to your point, we shouldn't leave the decision up to that. You see, this is why
the decision is literally up to 12 people. And that's the problem is all you have to do is, and it's so simple. It's just a backdoor shake and some money. You could give somebody some Bitcoin, right? It won't be traced. So, but the point here is that guys, literally it was on the RIFM's website. You can't find it anymore. Now they took it down. But their conflict of interest page, it was up. It came up on everything. If you read through it in detail, all of it was to set the precedent because the rules were being broken so badly, i.e. companies, the big companies, and I'm not going to mention their names, you know who they are. They came to the board and they paid them off, and they were like, ban oak moss. We can't have this fixative that's free. We need to have the aroma chemicals, and let's switch the entire industry over. And as they shifted everything, that's when you started the ISO-E and the ambroxans and everything. Everything shifted, and it was all because of the companies that were creating the actual product, going to the board and being like, wink, wink. Yeah, it's really bad for you. It's really bad. Look, the stats are the facts are the facts. There aren't like opinions here, right? And the facts are this. 25% of kids have eczema. I know this because I sell in-ground pools and I sell salt systems. I got to talk about it, right? 3% of the adult population has eczema. You are never going to have a skin allergy. And I repeat, this is not opinion, this is a fucking fact here. You will never have a skin allergy to oak moss unless you have eczema. So 3% of people, of adults, could get an allergy to, and if you look at their studies, how they put it all together, every single person that was in that study had eczema. So they took 100% of people who all had eczema and did a study and said, oh yeah, it's irritating the hell. It's all, the whole thing was a complete sham. And it was all based off of, hey, we're the companies, we're going to create the aroma chemicals, we're going to create the fixatives. You can't have this free stuff that's out in nature. That's not going to work for us. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense. I do need to push back. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
Let's get into it.
It doesn't make sense.
Please.
Because 50% of the, or roughly, I don't have that, and I don't have the spec sheet in front of me, but a large portion of the companies who you are saying paid off that board, their profits, or a large portion of their profits, come from their production of natural materials too. So most of these houses are producing both a large portion of the natural materials available to your houses like Chanel that need like large, well, Chanel's not a great example, Dior that need like a large amount of them, the few naturals they do use, right?
Yeah, they're producing a monopoly on the market of naturals as well.
Remington.
Yeah, this is something.
Well, yeah, that's a problem. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna. It's not like I'm disagreeing with you completely. I would just say that why would a large scale company like that volunteer to have half of their profits also put up for questioning by a board? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they would voluntarily do that just for the sake of growing one half of their business, especially where these companies are not new companies. They are old. Many of them are old companies. They've been around in this business for a long time. They would never sacrifice their natural material production, even as they are expanding into the world of aroma chemicals and expanding into the world of research into how to create new aroma chemicals. They are trying to like square a circle where they have this huge history and tradition of distilling natural materials while also, pushing for the creation of new aroma chemicals. So it's tough because I don't understand why a company would ever voluntarily put themselves up to have half of their profits.
All of these large companies, and I'm not going to say their names, you know who they are. All of these large companies, what do you mean? They all just got together at an Italian restaurant, broke bread, and they were like, this is where the industry's moving. We're all going to make a ton of money. We're all going to become millionaires. They're not making money off of oak moss. I don't understand the argument that you're making. How would they make money off of oak moss? It's grown in nature. It's a lichen. I don't understand what you mean. That if you look at the history of how it all went down, it's very, very obvious. I mean, it's like blatantly obvious. And we haven't even had a discussion about non-disclosure and about the fact that, because this is the big reason, you could solve all of this. All of this could just easily be solved, right? Hey, this has so much oak moss on it, and then you wouldn't buy it. And then it's like, well, no, I can't do that. I can't tell you the exact amount of anything I have in it because then somebody's going to go copy my fragrance, right? It's all about this. So the whole entire industry self-regulates itself due to this non-disclosure issue. Does that make sense?
So
I would like
I'm going to mention one more thing. I'm going to mention one more thing here.
We could talk about blockchain technology and how it could solve it too.
This wasn't the given topic for this evening, and I'm holding court here. So just with all due respect. So one other thing that I wanted to point on is sustainability. And that's something that we can pick up on. I could certainly bring up this subject again on another night, but sustainability is something to ponder on as well. So a lot of these decisions can be made for the sake of sustainability, and also lest we forget the European Union's role. And some people use the theory of supposed clean living wokeism, for lack of a better explanation, that we're finding this to be a lot of materials are set to be restricted that have had widespread use all throughout humanity, not just perfume, like lavender, eugenol, etc. So we have to look at that as their impact on this and how that goes downstream to IFRA in enforcement. And it's such a complicated issue, and I don't want to take up our entire live stream for this. There's a lot to unpack with it.
Yeah,
so no, it's fine. It's fine. And I also wanted to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted, like notes that we used to hate. Now we love them. So we'll move on. We'll move on from that. But I think that was a really lively discussion. Dave, I want to give you an opportunity to talk. You haven't had a chance in a while.
No, I think many people would agree that I've probably talked enough tonight, but that's all right.
No,
so I have
nonsense.
No.
I think that when you are kind of knee deep in this hobby and you're passionate and you have an opinion, honestly, I appreciate both Remington and Adam's debate. I love that. I think that's healthy. I think that's great. I do think IFRA has.
I love talking, Adam. By the way, I love discussing this with you, man, and I think that you're extremely intelligent. So, like, I don't want to
oh my God, likewise.
Yeah, no, I really do. Like, I can't wait for our next stream. Hope next Tuesday I'll see you again. Type deal. Yeah. So.
We'll bring our papers. We'll bring our podiums, our papers. We'll be shuffling them.
Yeah, I'll be prepared next time. I've got the 12 panelists. I'm going to talk about the professions. I'm going to talk about the conflict of interest. You're fucked. I have their addresses. It's going down.
It was kind of exciting. I loved it. In the near future, we'll pick up on that for sure.
Yeah, I do agree that there definitely has to be some type of stance when it comes to skin allergens. What may or may not can potentially be extremely hazardous beyond an allergic reaction to the skin. So I do think there definitely is a place for IFRA. I think, and I'm not just,
yes.
Keep in mind, Remington, I'm not just speaking to you. I think that for anybody that's, really knee deep and passionate about this hobby and truly passionate about perfumes, our initial reaction is to go, that's bullshit. Why would they do this? Why would they strip of us from this ingredient? Now there's going to be mass discontinuations of many of our favorite fragrances, and now what? I think, initially that's our instinct, but it's just one of those things where it happens, and then we just have to hope that these scientists and the chemists will form a safe, legal, compliant aroma chemical or something else that can be derived from the allergen that's less hazardous. That's all my piece. That's it. I will mute myself.
Yeah, you don't have to mute yourself unless you have that ghost of oak moss past in the background. If that
I don't. But
no,
let's comment on that. Down here, it's me. It's this, and then off to my left, which is that away, is the rest of my collection. There's nothing down here to make any kind of note. There's no speaker system, sound system. There's no TV. There's no nothing. So, no, I only mute myself when I have to cough because I am slowly getting over this cold.
Fair enough. So I'm going to revisit the first impressions right now. Starting off with one that is radiating off of my skin something fierce, and it's this Omnia Opal. Like, this is like Acqua di Sale on steroids. Now, if you know Acqua di Sale, which you do, Adam, like, that is actually kind of frightening because Acqua di Sale is, it's like it reaches that threshold, and I love it. but anything more than that is kind of scary. So here's your scary right here. Omnia Opal is like heavy on the aquatic and marine, and like it's just been almost nauseating since I've been sitting here. So this is a no-go. This has been disqualified before even the end of the live stream. So goodbye to that one. Next, Goldfield and Banks, Australia, Desert Rosewood.
Be careful. Be careful.
Oh, it's buttery. I just heard that. Is that a threat or is that a promise? No, I like this a little bit more now that it's dried down a bit. There's a little bit of that sweetness that's gone, which I'm happy about, because I wasn't really sure about whatever that sweetness was at in the top notes. This is a little bit butterier now. I do prefer the way that it's dried on my skin.
The dry down is beautiful. I believe there is the notes are actually right over there, but I do believe there's vanilla in there, and it's interesting that you pick up leather. You said leather, right? No, you said booze. I don't believe there is a boozy note credited.
It just comes up as boozy to me, which speaks to the concept of notes that are not there, or notes that are there that you don't smell. The notes pyramid is not gospel. And also perception is so subjective as well. At that time and place, maybe if I wear it again, I'll get a different interpretation. And then also another thing that I was talking about last week is the power of suggestion, the knowledge of those notes and how that shapes how we perceive something. We already have those notes in front of us. So what does our brain do? What is our olfactory center? How is it processing that stuff in conjunction with our brain, and our brain's like, what we remember or what we recall in scent memory. So all those things are coming into play. And here, I think that might have been the case where I was devoid of that. I was like, I don't have the notes in front of me. I don't know what. So I came across. But what it could very well be is something else that I just felt was kind of like a boozy, liquory kind of feel to it. And it could have been attributed by some of the notes, which at this point in the first impressions, you can divulge to me what those notes are, because we're already into the heart of it.
Okay.
So what are in the top notes? What was it that I thought was boozy?
I'm not going to go top mid base because I don't think that's the way it's listed here. I'm not.
They probably don't do a pyramid. Yeah, sometimes it's more just a list.
So we have Buddha wood from Australia, which is your desert rosewood. We have mandarin from Sicily. We have cardamom, benzoin, vanilla, and patchouli. Actually,
so it's probably, yeah.
I stand corrected. According to the brand, this unusual resinous and comforting leathery fragrance reveals an exceptional encounter between a rainbow of woods and the spectacular Australian desert under the burning sun.
Oh.
I stand corrected.
Buddha wood. And you know what? I actually am familiar with Buddha wood. I have the essential oil of Buddha wood.
I am not
part of this is
with
power of suggestion now that I know, but I will say this: I do really enjoy it more that that the top notes have dissipated and into the heart. So this is in the running so far. And then lastly, Artiste Namban.
Watch Adam when you guys are like backstage or something. He's gonna be like, "I freaking hated that, and I didn't want to crap on it because I didn't want to hear Dave's big mouth the whole night."
Well, you're going to be backstage too. I'll give it to you. I'll give you the straight skinny on how I feel about it. No, I actually do like it more in the dry down. But Nanban here is actually kind of letting me down. It's veering from that nostalgic 80s woody leather animalic kind of dankiness to to sort of like a more generic oud accord. Like there's like this like oud olfactory or something. Like I'm not liking the dry down as much on this one. So it's the reverse of desert rosewood. I wasn't too keen on the top notes, and then I liked as it dried down. Whereas this one, I loved it from the beginning, and now I'm not so thrilled about the dry down. So I'll revisit those one last time as I'm dropping them all over the place at the end of the live stream. Okay.
I think that one makes a fair bit of sense, though, because, you know, Desert Rosewood strikes me as one of those fragrances that's designed to be like kind of linear for in its performance, not necessarily in a bad way. It just sort of is what it is for most of the life on the skin. So it's no surprise that, you know, after it kind of levels itself off and kind of goes into what it's going to be for the rest of the time, that you might like a little bit more. You kind of understand what it's doing more so than other perfumes. The other one that you wore there that might be designed to, you know, let some things fire off at the top and middle and base.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's important to consider the relative linearity or lack thereof when making sort of a sound assessment or observing a fragrance. And it's funny how there is that kind of reverse between the two, where one started off wonderful and the other one is growing on me. Desert Rosewood is growing on me, Dave. It is. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass because you like it. I actually really like it.
No. I have to correct you. I effing love it. I used 2 F words tonight, so I don't want to get canceled on your stream. So I'm using my
Remington has you beaten by a country mile, my friend, and I just let it go.
That's my bad. I'm sorry, JJ.
No, it's fine. I was kind of joking about the limitations anyways. I wasn't dead serious. I'm not that uptight about it. It's fine.
Will not happen again.
So guys, let's move on to notes that we used to dislike or disapprove of. And then we eventually came around and realized that we adore them, and we're excited to experience them in fragrances. Since Dave is so excited about this, we'll start off with you, Dave.
I'm an energetic little bastard. That's the issue, I think. I don't know. So first of all, I would like the panel to stay quiet while I mention this particular note, because I know as soon as I mention it, you're going to gasp. And I don't want to hear it.
We'll clutch our pearls. Oh,
here we go.
Heavens to Betsy.
Grab your nuts and squeeze. Patchouli. I couldn't stand patchouli, and the reason was I was experiencing it in a dry form, the 2 samples that I used to have, and I didn't particularly care for it, nor did I want to smell like a head shop, or, you know, I can't stand this stereotype, but a hippie. I can't stand saying that word either. Anyway, but then it grew on me. I love it. I am a patch hoe, as Sebastian says. So, and he's actually the one, he recommended a fragrance to me for me to try to get into in hopes that I would love patchouli. And this particular fragrance contained 2 notes that I absolutely despised. And it's Incident Diplomatique by Javoy. I couldn't stand vetiver either, so I'm giving you both. And those are 2 notes that I absolutely love now. I love them. I appreciate them. I own many vetiver fragrances, many patchouli fragrances. I forgot what I said for a minute. And I'll give you one more, and then I'll stay quiet for, well, I can't promise how long, but I'll stay quiet. I'm going to throw the whole genre of fougères. The whole fougère genre, I'm going to throw right in. Coming into it,
damn.
What did I say? Stop it. I said, yeah, when I first came in, I thought that they all just smelled the same. I didn't really care for them. And then I started watching content a long time ago, YouTubers that I really, really trust and now have become friendly with, suggest some great barbershop fragrances over the years and other different, you know, fougères. And I'm obsessed with the genre so much that I think I own more fougère fragrances than any other particular genre in the world of fragrance. So yeah, I love Fougères, I love vetiver, I love patchouli. I used to hate all three, and yeah. So who's next?
Remington, we'll have you share with us your
That was a
previous
good one.
dislikes and
Actually, you
loves.
know what? I was gonna mute myself, but for Remington, I'm not going to.
Touche, my friend. All right.
Wrestling around here.
I think I'm, still in the beginning of my fragrance journey. Only having gotten into this within the last 2 years. And so I think that I'm just now getting to the point where I am starting to try to love notes that at first I didn't like. So I can't sit here and say, oh no, I'm in love with it now, but I'm like working towards it. I'm making an effort, and I think it's working. And it's 2 notes, and it's probably going to be, I'm sure you guys are gonna be like, what the hell? But first one's iris. So, and I spelled an example of Dior Homme, and it was an older sample. And I was like, I can't do this. It's too lipsticky. I just can't do it. And then all of a sudden I started reaching more lately for my Tom Ford Noir. And it's the iris note in there that I think I'm liking. I'm like, shit, is that lipsticky? Am I starting to like it? And then also in addition to that too, there is an iris note in the Bulgari, which I hate the dry down on this fragrance, but the opening mid is awesome. And I love the iris in that as well. I'm starting to like it. So I think iris is the one I'm starting to come around to, which makes me really regret selling Rudy my 2005 batch of Dior Homme. Ugh, the silver stem. Probably shouldn't have sold that one to Rudy, but I'm coming around to it, and I think I'm starting to like it more. But at first, that lipsticky thing I wasn't doing enough for me. But I think that's also because I was so into these vintage barbershop fougères and these darker herbal and all this oak moss, and I kind of came in my fragrance journey began with that, so that the iris thing was like a total whoa for me. But now it's definitely growing on me.
Very well. So iris, do you have any others there, Remington?
I got one more. Yeah, rose. I'm starting to like rose a lot more as well. At first, the rose bothered me in Third Man, and now all of a sudden, I love it. I absolutely love the rose in my vintage Zurius. So I'm starting to come around to that as well. And I even went out and I was like, I was at some discount store or something like that, and I randomly saw it, and I'm like, you know what? Even though this is a female fragrance, there's only 3 notes, and it's going to be a big rose. There's going to be a fat rose in this, along with vetiver and geranium. Why don't I try it out? And I purchased this. I know it's weird, but it's Elizabeth James Nirvana, and it's only 3 notes. It's just rose. I don't know if you know this one or not, but
it's gorgeous stuff. It's unisex, definitely unisex.
Oh my God, this rose in here is it's like mouth watering, and it's so earthy. It's just like this fat, juicy rose, just filthy dirty. I'm starting to love it. So rose is the other note that I'm coming around on. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a lot of rose with geranium. Rose and geranium together are wonderful. It's the reason why I love La Fille de Berlin from Serge Lutens as well. Yes, Dave.
I just want to applaud myself because I was triggered twice by those 2 notes, and I didn't say a word. Carry on.
I was going to say, you didn't even interrupt me.
Adam, I wanted to get your notes that you came around to. You took some time for you to warm up to them.
Sure, yeah. Well, Remington, have you tried, I'm sure you have, Noir de Noir from Tom Ford? How do you feel about the rose in that one?
See, I haven't tried that yet. I need to.
Yep. It's blended pretty well into the composition. It's not necessarily like a big rose fragrance, in my opinion. I think it's more about the earthier kind of cashmere blast, but it's really good. Is there patchouli in Noir de Noir? Oh yeah, well? Yeah, there definitely is, but it's not. Well, I've never tried it either. For your purposes, sample with care, but it's not like that dank patchouli, and it's not a particularly powdery patchouli either. It's kind of cleaner. I suspect it. Well, we could talk about aroma chemicals that make up the smell of patchouli all night. Is it moist? No, is it a moist not to patchouli? Me. Not to me. There's an earthy hit, but it's not aggressive in its earthiness. kind of
Can
crazy.
you guys distinguish different patchoulis like JJ and you guys have amazing noses? Can you distinguish the like Indonesian patchouli and?
I can distinguish patchouli styles. I cannot give you a full. I can't say this is from this is that. That's Adam and JJ all day long. I'm very, very honest. When I say I don't know something, I'm not afraid to be that guy that says I don't know.
I can't speak for Adam, but even I have a tough time between like Indonesian patchouli and Javan patchouli, and the venomers are a little bit easier, but patchoulis are a little bit tougher. I can distinguish between.
Has patchouli changed over time?
I mean, what do you mean? I think
has it evolved? Are they using different like I don't know. I guess I'm just wondering.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've used
because there's some fragrances. Okay.
You know, the fractional distillations, where what they do with a fractional distillation is the purpose is to remove certain aspects of the patchouli and highlight or exalt other aspects of the patchouli. So you have one very common one that's been used in perfumery called clearwood. So that exposes certain facets, while sort of the cleaner and woodier aspects of the patchouli, taking away some of maybe the more earthy and head shoppy, associated with head shoppier types of patchoulis. There's all different kinds of fractionations and different distillations, and there's essential oil of patchouli, absolutes. There's also isolated acid, like patchouli acetate has been used to lend a certain patchouli quality without actual patchouli being there. So yeah, there's a lot, and patchouli goes in so many different directions. Every one of these, like iris, for example, that you guys were mentioning, like iris can go in so many directions. Like lipstick is just one aspect that can be emphasized or de-emphasized in iris, and the same thing that could be said with like a lot of these others, like vetiver and so on and so forth. But Adam, back to you on your notes.
Well, I'm still struggling with iris, honestly. The thing that I've found is that iris is one of those notes that it's just so often used a certain way, and it just so happens that I don't like that way. However, if you smell, you know, other very different interpretations of it, or if you get your hands on the few natural distillations of iris, in this case orris, its root, that are available to you, you end up smelling something that's completely different. The thing I love about orris root, if you know, it's a very expensive thing to get your hands on, but if I just buy a little tiny quantity of it, is that it's really vegetal and like earthy and incredibly smooth. In fact, the product that you typically buy is called orris butter, and it smells like butter. Not lactonic. It just has a very smooth texture to it that's really kind of addicting. So I'm still struggling with iris just because usually it's skewed really powdery, and I just can't do powdery at all. And that's actually one of the reasons why I struggle with many vintage perfumes, is because powderiness is a fairly common texture in not all vintages, but certainly quite a few. And I just can't get down with that. So I'm still sort of working my way through iris, but something that I've actually come to like, I would say orange blossom is a note that I've come to really enjoy that I did not used to like whatsoever. And that's sort of another case of just finding different types of orange blossom accords. Louanges Profane, sorry, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the French way of pronouncing it, from Pierre Guillaume is something that I talk about often. It's a beautiful incense, orange blossom, salty kind of quality to it. It's really cool, unlike anything I've smelled before. I really like the Chanel Paris Riviera. I think that's actually just the full name of it. I think it's called the Riviera series or whatever from Chanel. It's those lighter EDTs that disappear a little too fast, but are beautiful nonetheless. The Chanel Paris Riviera one has a great orange blossom note, as well as some other florals mixed in just for fun. So yeah, I'm slowly kind of coming towards the light of orange blossom. It's a really beautiful note, but I just find that it's usually paired with other accords I might not be as crazy about. It sometimes can skew a little powdery, and I just can't get down with that end of it. But when it's rendered kind of cleanly and without too much powder, I love it.
Very well then. Very well then. Well, I, for one, have no issues with powder whatsoever, which definitely helped me in my enthusiasm for vintages. Love powdery, love it. So anybody who already enjoys powdery and haven't dipped their toes in vintages, then yeah, you'll definitely have no problem with a lot of the fragrances from days of yore. Le Bleu and Amanita and any of those fragrances that have like heliotrope and lots of moss and iris and violet and so on and so forth. Love it, love it, love it. But my three would be one of them, which I was foreshadowing this a little bit because I chose one of my first impressions because it's an aquatic. So when you see a notes pyramid or a notes list and you see that wave on Fragrantica, I would be a little bit skittish about it. I've always had a tough time with marine, aquatic, ozonic kind of stuff. Like it would elicit a very visceral response of emotion. But somehow over time, I'm starting to really warm up to them. This past summer, I really started to get into them. I don't know exactly what happened, but that's why I got a sample of the Acqua di Sale and I fell in love with that. And Reminiscence Rem, the old school ones like Kenzo Porome. And so that's one of them where it's like, even back in the 80s, like cool water made me like dry heave. But now, I mean, now the new version would probably make me dry heave, but I'm coming around to that kind of stuff. I'm coming around to aquatics and watery kinds of scents. The next one is Ylang Ylang. And it's not because like I didn't like the smell of Ylang Ylang. I had a tough time when it showed up in fragrance. I felt like if it showed up at any level, it was off-putting and almost too like ripe and banana-like for me. Like it would stick out like a sore thumb to me. But now, after I started experiencing a few fragrances that have a little bit more Ylang Ylang, especially one 31 Rue Cambon, 31 Rue Cambon from Chanel. I love the Ylang Ylang on that. I love the Ylang Ylang with the iris. And now I'm wanting to explore some other fragrances that really highlight Ylang Ylang. Maybe revisit Chanel No. 5, because Chanel No. 5 is famous for its synergy between the allopathic aldehydes and the Ylang Ylang. Then the third one, and this is going to be kind of funny, Remington, because of last night's live stream with Eugene and Rudy. The third one's honey. When I first smelled a fragrance years ago, it was Miel de Bois from Certain Boutons, and I thought it was just, I couldn't deal with it. It just smelled like it smelled too pissy for me, too like I didn't really associate the honey that I'm tasting with the honey that I'm smelling. Then over time, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just really deep diving into vintages, and a lot of them have honey. It just started to speak to me. And now one of my favorite more recent releases is from Anatole Breton, Bois Lumière, which is honey and beeswax, and it's really has like an animalic kind of edge to it. But I think it's just gorgeous. It reminds me of like beeswax candles burning and like this old cabin. It's just a gorgeous scent. So those are my three: aquatic note, generic aquatic note, Ylang Ylang, and honey. The end.
And you triggered me too. You triggered me. You and Remington, you got me.
Which one? Which one?
Oh no.
Honey, because my favorite fragrance of all time contains honey. And a big heaping dose of it too.
What is
that? A couple of my favorites are honey. Have honey in them now.
I want to know.
Which one? Yeah, tell us.
Naxos by Xerjoff.
Okay.
That has a lot of honey. Definitely does. Yeah.
Since we're on the topic of, we're talking about so many things right now, powdery and honey and all this. And excuse me. And we were talking earlier too about how different notes do different things on the skin and things like that. And you had mentioned Eugene and Rudy's stream from last night, and it brought me back to that. Immortelle is a note in fragrances that I love. I absolutely love Immortelle on my skin, and I've never heard anybody say this before, but I get a cross. It reminds me of three things. It's like a honeyed, powdery, almost like the consistency of syrup or molasses, like maple. Yeah, like maple, not molasses, like maple syrup. It kind of has that powdery maple sort of smell on my skin.
Yeah. That's whole Immortelle totally has that. That Immortelle kind of reminds me of dried flowers that are scented like maple syrup and fenugreek. So I get that too. And Immortelle is one of my all-time favorite notes. Like, have you experienced Sable from Goutal?
Yes, I have it. It's right over here. Absolutely. That was actually a subscriber of mine recommended that fragrance to me, and I actually had another fragrance already en route that contained Immortelle as a note. And when I sprayed it on my skin, that's when I realized, okay, I really love this note, and now I need to take his suggestion and I need to try it. Tried Annick Goutal's Sables, and I absolutely freaking loved it. But I will tell you, anytime there's Immortelle credited as a note, man, does it like Immortelle does something to my skin where it just like it's at times it's like the only thing that I could smell. It's like my brain is so drawn into that because how beautiful this note smells to me on my skin. I just, yeah, I would, oh, it would be so hard for me to say it's one of my favorite notes because I'm that guy that's like, if you were to ask me what's your favorite note in perfumery, I would have to give you like a top 12, you know?
Oh, I'd have a super tough time with that. I hate narrowing it down to like small lists, but Immortelle's definitely up there. I like anything that, you know, and there is a word that we can use for that. That's something that is agrestic. So it is reminiscent of you know, a pastoral scene in a meadow or a farm. I think, Adam, you've used this word agrestic sense, you know. Hay notes, clover, Immortelle, wildflowers, and you know, those sorts of things. Love things like that, and Immortelle evokes that so wonderfully. Yeah, great stuff. You have any experience with Immortelle, Remington?
No, and now I'm like, I need to like, what? Give me a recommendation. Give me something that I can buy.
I think we could all give a few.
I want a fragrance that's good. It needs to be under $100. It has that Immortelle note, and I'll purchase it because, man, I'll tell you what, I'm like super intrigued now. I mean, the way that you described it coming off your skin, that's awesome.
JJ is going to give you 40 recommendations. I'm going to give you one, and this
one about that many. I'm not that nuts.
Most affordable.
Nuts, but not that nuts.
It's my it is my scent of the night, and Margie Noir actually spoke about it. It's 1740 by Histoire de Parfum. This stuff is incredible. It's not just about Immortelle. There's woods, there's leather in here, there's labdanum. There's a whole bunch of, wait, is there labdanum or is it Divana?
17.
I can't remember.
Divana is in it. Divana is another favorite note of mine, which doesn't appear nearly as often as I'd like, because it's such a weird mercurial note. But yeah, Divana is in it. It's a leathery Immortelle.
Yeah. I completely forgot that I had this, and it would have been on the video that's going to upload tomorrow morning. I completely forgot that I had this, and I was like, shit, that would have fit perfectly. But anyway, it's a beautiful fragrance, and I have 2 sprays of this on my hand. It's my scent of the night. But this fragrance you can find on Fragbuy for it. This is 15 mils, which is enough for you to review. It's also enough for you to have many wearings of it. for like $25.
Oh, absolutely. All day.
Yeah. And Remington, it would be such a logical progression for your enthusiasm with the older style scents. It would just, you would seamlessly get into a scent like 1740 or Sabla. Sabla might run you a little bit more. I don't think they have like smaller I don't know how
Sabla.
the most Sabla spelled like sables. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that in the chat. Yeah, I'm writing these down. This is good stuff. Oh yeah.
Which is just so happens to be.
I got you.
It just so happens to be a classic scent. It was released in
1985. Everybody's saying 1740 thumbs up. I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and purchase that. All right.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm excited. I love it.
I don't recommend trash. Okay, and 1 million elixir is trash.
Yeah, I don't definitely try to get at least a sample of Sabla. That's like the standard bearer as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, do yourself a favor, get a sample or like one of those 15 minutes
sample of Sabla off eBay. Yep. Hell yeah.
Yeah. There's some others too that I'd recommend. Afternoon of a Fawn from Italie Blanche, another great one with Immortelle. There are several from Parfums d'Empire. Marc-Antoine Corticchiato loves to use Immortelle in his fragrances. So it's in Fougère Bengal, and their Immortelle Course. It's in Tabac Tabou. But yeah, those are the ones that I would recommend off the top. Oh, this is one that's under the radar that I love, Alizarin by Penhaligon's, which is this. It also has a narcissus note, another favorite note of mine, narcissus. Good stuff there. Yeah, Immortelle Course, it's good stuff. I haven't gone full bottle on it. I still debating it. I have a lot of stuff. I mean, do I really need a full bottle, or I'll just nurse that sample for a long time? Tangy sweet dreams from honey.
I think it's safe to say, JJ, you probably don't need a full bottle of anything. So anything,
no, absolutely, I didn't
as a want.
Yeah, that would no. I don't need anything. None of this is like I didn't need anything like a year and a half, 2 years ago, but and I just kept on going on and on. So.
Yeah, who cares? Remington, I actually shot over the link to Frag By for 1740.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you did.
I shot that over to your Instagram.
Yeah, man.
And there's actually a house too that I'm going to recommend, and that would be Gallagher Fragrances. Gallagher is a great one to check out. They have Behold Patchouli, which is the best patchouli fragrance that was ever created, and their new one, September, was my scent of the day today, and it is amazing. It's amazing.
Gonna go ahead and second that recommendation. Gallagher makes some really fun stuff.
Okay, Gallagher.
See, when he said he was in the indie niche perfume, and I said, "My man," I knew what was going on here. It's funny though, September, when I was reading the notes, because they put the notes right here on the plate. It goes apricot, black tea, which there's a lot of black tea, Turkish rose. I don't pick any of that up. Oakwood, there's a whole lot of oakwood here. Maple, yes. Honeyed amber for sure. But I was also getting these different like boozy qualities, and I was getting this damp herbal type of smell. And I was like, where in the hell is this coming from? When I got home right before this stream, I went on their website, and on the full note breakdown, there's tobacco and red wine listed. And I'm like, well, there's your boozy and there's your herbal type of smell. There's your tobacco. So I thought that was funny, because all day I should have been working, and I was just wondering, like, what the hell am I smelling right here?
I have yet to find a fragrance with a red wine note that appeals to me. There's actually another one from Parfums d'Empire that has like a red wine note, and I'm trying to remember the name.
Suga Parfum has wine and chocolate. That's fantastic. But it's really for that fragrance is, I would say, it's definitely, it sounds like it's mass appealing, but it's really not. That, to me, Suga seems to be the type of brand, in my opinion, from sampling their their first collection, that's a brand for like the connoisseurs. You're not going to find much mass appeal there.
And wine to me doesn't seem like a very, mass appealing note anyways. That's for somebody who really appreciates fragrance. Like, unless like it's just thrown into that notes list and you don't really pick up an actual red wine or wine note at all, which has been known to happen too. That brings me to the whole thing about phantom notes and fantasy notes, and they get you with those notes that are in the listing or the pyramid, but then you can't find them at all. Adam, do you know what I'm talking about? Like some of these notes where it's like, for what reason is that in the breakdown?
They're a little too subtle, yeah, for a reason.
A little too subtle, or they don't exist, or it's like a note that is like, or the fantasy notes. The fantasy notes, I talked about it a little bit last week. Like, it cracks me up when there's a fantasy note. And either it's like a flower or it is like something in nature that doesn't give off enough of a scent to really warrant it being a note, but yet it's still there. And then like somebody will review it and they'll be like, I can definitely pick up on the camellias in this fragrance. Like they've actually grown their varieties of camellias in their garden, and they can pick up the nuances of it. Or something like passion flower or poppy, or I'm trying to think of some other ones where it's just like clearly not something that really gives off a scent, but it's just there to kind of, it's marketing to kind of give the belladonna. I'm trying to remember what fragrance had like a belladonna note, like nightshade. It's kind of funny. Orchid, yeah, orchid. Go ahead, Adam.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, so on the topic of fantasy notes, I think actually one house does that really well. Imaginary Authors is known for putting one fantasy note in all their perfumes. And so the thing that's funny about the way that they do it is it's sort of tongue in cheek, and they kind of play up the fact that it's tongue in cheek, and that when they do bother to actually try to go for that kind of fantasy note in their fragrances, they interpret it as a texture. It's not really like a smell of something. Right. It's the way it kind of plays against your nose. Like they have like an orchard dust accord. There's no such thing as orchard dust. Like, what does that even mean? But
orchard dust?
Orchard dust?
Okay. Orchard dust. And so the thing is that in the fragrance itself, I can tell you it in just a moment because my brain is having a brain fart moment, but in the fragrance itself, it's just sort of interpreted as like this kind of dusty, powdery kind of texture. It's not really a smell. It's like the way it feels, which I think is kind of clever, right? If you're gonna play up something really campy, then you may as well pay off with something that is present in the fragrance without actually being a discernible smell.
It kind of reminds me of those. Oh, so go ahead.
No. I've spoken up.
Okay, well, we'll get right back to you then. Kind of reminds me of the Comme des Garçons scents, like Odor 53 and Odor 71, like dust in a light bulb, toenail clippers. I don't know. They just would have or ink, like a printer ink, or the smell of like freshly printed paper from a machine. Those were a very interesting studies, but I just couldn't bring myself to wear them. But it was a very cool time in fragrance, the late 90s, early 2000s, where there was a lot of experimentation. Dave, go ahead.
Oh, no, you were talking about Imaginary Authors. So Memoirs of a Trespasser has oak barrels in it, which is probably the most... this is going to sound so mean, and I don't mean it for it to come out like this, but probably the most simplistic accord that they have, because like he was saying, like Adam was saying, they typically have something fun in oak barrels, but there is, but the whole fragrance is pretty smoky. At least that's what I get. So it does kind of smell like having a campfire where you're burning oak barrels. It smells like burning oak wood.
They always they always surprise you there. I like that their interpretation of a fantasy accord. It's just like they don't really, like you said, they try to go for a little bit of camp, and I appreciate that because they're very tongue in cheek about it. They kind of know what they're doing there.
It's a very I tout them as being I kind of categorize them as being a very quirky house. You know, and I love that because it's just unique and different.
I agree. What was that one with the blood in its name? That was an interesting Bull's Blood. That one was quite an interesting one, I must say. That's up there with like Secretion's Magnifiques, where it's just like a big WTF when you put it on. It's like I love, you know, fragrance essays, but not. I just can't. There's just some where it's just like I couldn't imagine myself wearing them in public, and that's one of them. So yeah, there's a few like that where it's like, yeah, this is intriguing, a great conversation piece, but yeah, I'm not gonna wear this out.
So really quick, my apologies. I have a very early rise tomorrow, so it's my time to duck out. But I hope the party keeps going, and so that I can watch something tomorrow.
Well, we'll be sticking around for about 10 more minutes. So
all right, very good.
All right. Adam,
it was great to meet you, Adam.
Yeah, no, likewise. Thank you so much for the discussion tonight, and I appreciate everybody's like spirited comments and the great like diversity of topics that we covered is pretty impressive. So thank you so much for everything.
It is, yeah. All right, Adam. We will see you soon. Potentially next Tuesday, maybe.
I don't see why not. Let's do it.
Okay. All right, we'll talk. All right.
Till then.
Have a good night.
See you, Adam.
So we've reached sort of like the home stretch of the live stream. So we're going to be on for another 10 minutes. Any other thoughts in your mind? Here's an opportunity to air out a few things on a live stream, things that have been on your mind about perfume content creators, or just anything. Free form to close things out.
Dave, take it away.
So, all right, man. So I just want to say, because I had to apologize to somebody yesterday for saying some negative things, and I said the same negative things to JJ. I have come full circle to Frederic Mall's Musc Ravageur. I love this stuff. I have been spraying this sample on for the past 2 nights. Tonight will be night number 3, and I've got to say, this was a despise at first sniff for me, but this may be, it is full bottle worthy. So this may be a soon full bottle purchase of mine. And thanks to you and Rudy, you guys have me wanting to dive deeper into the house of Frederic Mall. So when we're talking, when we're talking about the state of content creation, man, if you ever want to like have a conversation about anything, that is the one thing I love talking about. Watch content that I could learn from.
Cut out there.
Philip, that will be a good suggestion for another night, because I think we'll go off on a huge tangent with that. But let me revisit that topic on another night. Thank you. So Dave, proceed.
Well, first, Joe, happy birthday to your daughter. And for those of you that don't know, Dry Down Lowdown, he is the oldest man in Fragcom at the ripe age of 92 years old. So thank you for joining us here. So anyway,
it's impressive how he has his wits about himself still.
Yeah, you know, he's doing
great, Joe. That's awesome.
So when it comes to content creators, I enjoy watching content from folks that I could learn from. I don't need to be sold a damn thing. I could go find it on my own. And I wish there was more. I see a lot of negativity, not so much, well, a little bit spews over and you see content creators talking about it. I just wish there was more positivity and kind of this upbringing where people like what you do, like these live streams and things like that. People preach like, oh, we're a family, we're a community, we're this, we're that. This is I help, people reach out to me and I help them. Well, let's show it. These are words, show that you want to be involved. That would be great. But yeah, I stay away from people that are just trying to sell me product. I don't need to be sold anything. I'm not in like that type of mood or mode. I just want to be at this point I want to learn. I want to learn about and challenge myself, I want to hear people talking about different things. I don't want to hear about stuff that I can go find at like a Macy's or whatever. I want to hear about things that aren't normally or commonly talked about, And I do agree. This was brought up a while ago. I do agree, though, that when a content creator is sent something, they definitely should disclose that that product was sent to them for free.
Right,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that point, especially depending upon how transparent somebody is as an influencer. I think that if somebody is an influencer under the guise of merely a content creator, where they pull the wool over your eyes and they present this as sort of their own review, and they just so happen to have the bottle, and that's fine. And, they could have bought it themselves, or did they? Or I think what is kind of easy to do after a while, after seeing a lot of this kind of content, is you can start to kind of read between the lines. And then if you notice some patterns in the content,
100%.
like
yes,
the brands, the houses that they concentrate on, the way they approach their content. Reading the reviews themselves is a dead ringer too, because like if you read the review, the strangest reviews I read are the ones where it's like basically just how much it is enjoyed, a little bit of the ad copy, just some words rearranged, and the notes pyramid. There's like a lot of these content creators and whatever you want to call them on Instagram, or I see them on Instagram, where it's like they have like 70,000 followers. But yet when you look at there's the picture, and I know a lot of people, they're just looking at the picture and they're not reading what trust me, I know this because my pictures always have written content underneath, like reviews. And it's funny when I'll discuss something or I'll share something, and then somebody will comment with the very thing that I just mentioned in the entire review, and they didn't read it. They just went right for the picture, and then they commented. That's a whole other story for another time. But the 70,000 followers, and then you read it, and it's just this perfunctory listing of the notes, and just this is great to wear in the evening or something, and that's it. And they get like, I don't understand how these exist and how these people get so many followers, and what the purpose is, what the intention is.
How about this one? The same exact thing that you just said, all of it, the picture, the note pyramid, 70,000 followers, and every post gets on average of 50 to 75, maybe on a good day, 110 likes. Now, how is that possible if you have 70,000 followers?
Great point. Yep.
Right. Because if you see, say, like an Instagram page that may have like a check mark next to it and they have 70,000, they get themselves like 1,000 likes on like a post.
Correct.
But these, the fragrance, I mean, I bet no matter, you could just pick out of a box some other type of you know, like the watch community, the sneakers community, whatever. I'm sure they all have their versions of this, but it's like, what's going on and who are you fooling? It's just so strange to me, so bizarre. And then these same people, they will like about like 40 of my posts, and they'll do it again like you know, a month later, and like, do they want me to follow them? Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that kind of engagement. Like, I don't. It seems like
follow request. It's a follow
like
request,
they won't even
and they would
send
like they would like a story shout out, like thank you, like a thank you. No, I'm not. I ignore that purposely, intentionally.
It's almost kind of like, how did you actually take in and enjoy and experience 40 of my posts when I write about everything that I'm posting? Like, you obviously didn't read all of that in the course of 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, you don't like,
right.
It's so, yeah, that's
obvious.
the stuff that kind of got me a little tired of like some of the Instagram tomfoolery that goes on. And then the people who like tag me and like giveaways and stuff, and I don't even know who they are. Like, it's like, at least like initiate some contact or get to know me or something, and then maybe I don't mind it. It's just so weird how people are so self-driven and they use their connections for that.
I don't mind the I don't mind when folks, because I get tagged in a giveaway like almost every day. I don't mind that, because when you go to the giveaway rules, it says, you know, tag 3 of your friends. So you're just doing that to qualify yourself in the giveaway. You're not necessarily inviting me to partake. I don't partake in giveaways, but that's just me.
I just think that like the absolute minimum should be like, you've actually interacted with that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. No, I know.
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from.
Like, if you followed me and there's been no interaction for the months that you followed me, and then you just like, in the few times that I've done that, I made sure that it was people that I interact with frequently. And I still ask, because like, you know, maybe I'm a little too polite, but it's just, it'll be like people that I don't hide nor hear, and then they're tagging me in a giveaway thing. Like, it's like, it's funny. It's amusing. It's like, you know, there are worse things to bitch about, but I just find that kind of stuff funny. New tech networking. Yeah, that's what it is. This is the, you know, the age of hyper realism, and in the age of hyper realism, this is the way that we network. Everybody is like an asset. You know, we're all currency. You know, likes are currency. People who follow you are currency. I only like IG posts in groups of 40. There are people like that too.
There's the culprit.
Where they post 40 fucking things all at once. And it's like overkill. The age of attention and the age of inattention. When
I think Rudy makes a great point there. Yeah.
No, he's just relaxing there. He's kind of, you know, he's nodding and agreeing. Well, I think this is a good.
He's thinking. He's got something to say.
Oh, he can conspire and leave it for the backstage, because we're going to be wrapping up here.
Patrick is such a.
No, we know that, and that's why we love him, right?
Yeah, I love Patrick. Love Patrick. Yeah, staring off in the.
So I'm going to revisit these.
Yeah, I do presentations.
First impressions one last time. So I'm not even going to give an opportunity to Omnia Opal, because it's been giving me an ongoing impression of migraine. And then Goldfield and Banks, Australia. I like this one a lot. I know, I swear to God, I'm not just saying this because you like it, Dave. Trust me, I'm not that type of person. If I disliked it, I would still say I dislike it. But it's growing on me, the desert rosewood. It's the Buddha wood in it, because like I'm really starting to pick it up now. And I know about Buddha wood because I've had it and used the essential oil and so on and so forth. And I think it's a very lovely use of it. So I really like that one. And our Keys Nanban.
That's what you better say.
It's a dud. The non-bond is sort of a dud. Like it was so promising in the opening. 2 hours later, it seems a little too generic modern for what it was setting itself up to be when it started. So, ironically, what ends up being the winner but Goldfield and Banks Australia Desert Wood. This is actually my winner out of the 3 for tonight.
Oh yeah.
All right, folks. So I think we're going to wrap this up. Guys, stick around for backstage. We'll do that for another half hour or so. Everybody who's tuned in, I want to thank you so much for JJ his temple right now. I want to thank
somebody is requesting a mushroom pick. I don't think this is that type of stream.
No. Well, they're referring to my share. I share mushrooms on Instagram occasionally. The actual, fruiting body of the fungus. Not what dirty bird. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Next week, I'm going to have Hannah, CanadianBeauty.com. She'll be joining me. Adam will be coming back, and I think that we'll have Ryan, my other regular panelist, as well. So tune in then next Tuesday. And tomorrow, I am premiering a video on 5 wonderfully dated fragrances. That's right, dated fragrances. Check that out tomorrow. Nothing modern about them at all. Tune in to check out that premiere tomorrow. It's probably going to be in the afternoon. But until then, take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Take care.